I thought Jayson Tatum just completely dominated the first quarter of that Spurs game, set the tone, built that initial advantage, and it was something that the Spurs just couldn't overcome. On the defensive end of the floor, Boston had a switching group out there that was just doing a really nice job. Just staying attached, shutting down screening actions. Switching puts an emphasis on running action, good action that confuses switching, like three-man action, lots of ball and player movement to try to get guys to make mistakes. And then when teams successfully switch, you've got to be aggressive against those switches, getting to the basket to get super high value shots or to draw multiple defenders. You can run into a trap where you start settling. And that was what happened in that first quarter. There was a few examples of good action. There was like a little Chicago action, like a down screen into a dribble handoff where they pitched it back to Julian Champagnie on the right wing and knocked down a three. There were a couple examples like that, but it was a lot of like De'Aaron Fox contested pull-up jump shots, Victor Wembanyama contested pull-up jump shots. They weren't doing a very good job of attacking the switching. And then on the other end of the floor, in the first quarter, Jayson Tatum goes for 14 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists with 0 turnovers. Did a ton of scoring in that short to mid-range, attacking the Spurs' smaller players when they get switched onto in mismatches. There was a stretch in the late first quarter where they started spamming a stack pick and roll action with Luke Cornett and Peyton Pritchard. Just a ball screen with Tatum and Cornett with Pritchard back screening. Generated a wide open three for Pritchard at the top of the key that he happened to miss. He ended up hitting a pull-up three on the right wing when they botched a switch. Again, three-man action is a great way to get teams to botch switches. And Victor Wembanyama was basically just sticking with the screen, the guy who was back screening him in the action, instead of dealing with Tatum coming off of that screen. He just stepped into it, knocked down a three. He finished the quarter off with a beautiful driving kick, like sweeping hook pass over to the left wing to Al Horford. Tatum just immediately looked like by far the best player on the floor. In a game that had 2 players that are considered top 25 players in the league, in my opinion, in De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama, and Tatum was just completely outclassing them to start the game. And this is just the groove that Jayson Tatum's in right now. During this 3-game winning streak, he's averaging 35 points per game on 61% true shooting. I thought Porzingis was the catalyst of the early second quarter group that had some success. They pushed the lead all the way up to 23 points. He was just running the floor in transition. He had a play where he beat everyone down the floor for a dunk. He had another play where he ran his lane in transition on the right wing and hit a three. Throughout the entire first half, he was doing a great job of posting switches the same way that Jayson Tatum was, getting short range, efficient shots. And then his rim protection was great. This is a Spurs team that can struggle with driving kick decisions. And so if you get Porzingis parked underneath the basket, he can do some real damage to a team that can struggle to be surgical in the half court. The Celtics really controlled the game throughout. They led by 20-ish for most of the first half. The Spurs did cut it down to 8 in the early fourth quarter, but then the Celtics immediately regained control. Kristaps Porzingis hit a three. Peyton Pritchard hit a three. Sam Hauser hit a three. Sam Hauser got fouled on a run out, made 2 free throws. They had a couple of really good defensive possessions mixed in there, and then all of a sudden they're back up 16 and the game's basically over. The Celtics seem to have regained their footing, though. They have won 7 out of 8 after a really uneven couple of months there. They're 7th in offense in that span, 3rd in defense in that span. And that's despite a bunch of guys being out of the lineup. Jaylen Brown has missed 2 games in that stretch. Kristaps Porzingis has missed a game. Drew Holiday's missed 4 games in that span. Al Horford's missed a game. But a couple of guys stepping up. Jayson Tatum has just been consistently great. I've seen a lot of talk of late about Celtics fans calling Jayson Tatum the best forward since LeBron. And when I first heard that, I had this like kind of reflex that came up in me that was like, well, what about Kawhi? And like, what about Kevin Durant? And I think Kevin Durant would be the guy that I'd probably still put over Tatum in the sense that like in that like 2018 to 2021 stretch, he was just and that's like spanning with an Achilles injury in the middle. But in that, like, I should say like 2017 to 2021 stretch, he was just so incredibly good on both ends of the floor. I'm not quite there. But I do think he's been better than Kawhi. If you like piece everything together, because like what Tatum is to me is he's a Swiss Army knife type of forward in the same vein as a LeBron James. So for instance, like Kevin Durant has a lot of impact. I think Kevin Durant has a arguably just as good of an impact on the defensive end in terms of his ability to protect the rim, defensive rebound, switch out onto the perimeter. But Kevin Durant has a little bit of a susceptibility to size and strength. We saw that in the Memphis game 2 nights ago when Jaren Jackson was able to just kind of toss KD around at certain times, and he got 2 easy buckets on him in the post late in the game, or an easy bucket and a foul late in the game, where I think Tatum's a little bit sturdier for that type of matchup. But I think KD also is a little bit longer, a little bit better rim protector. So like the two of them are more or less even on the defensive end of the floor. But I do think that Tatum has a certain Swiss Army knife quality in terms of just his ability to keep the ball moving, his playmaking ability. Jayson Tatum has become a really, really gifted playmaker in this league. And so we can debate whether or not Tatum has reached a level that's higher than Kawhi or higher than KD. I'm hesitant to go that far, but what I will say is that Tatum is becoming the Swiss Army knife of this generation, which is what LeBron was in his generation. It's a type of player that I'm drawn to because I think it demonstrates first of all, a versatility, but also just a commitment to winning. There's a lot of stuff in there that guys aren't willing to do. A simple example is like as good as Kevin Durant has been defensively, I think he's kind of underachieved on that end over the course of his career. Whereas Tatum, you can tell, is maximizing his potential on that end of the floor. I think it's just a testament to the type of leader he is, the type of competitor that he is. Like, again, a lot of times we see guys like that are a little bit more mellow and not as like loud and boisterous with their personality, and we or even guys that are boisterous but that are positive. We think of them as like not competitors because they're not Kobe Bryant type assholes. And the truth of the matter is like the work that Jayson Tatum does is a pretty clear demonstration of the type of competitor that he is.